Yo, what is up? It is King Steph, and we are back with a new chapter for JJK. Very action-packed, got some couple techniques revealed, a big surprise at the end of the chapter, but sadly, next week we're going to be on break because they're having Golden Week out there in Japan. I'm not sure if that bleeds into the week after next, but either way, we're basically not going to have JJK for about a week. That kind of sucks, especially, like I said, the end of the chapter was absolutely hype. It's going to suck waiting, but let's go ahead and get into the review of the new chapter. Chapter opened up with Hakari and Charles battling on a roller coaster or on top of like a Ferris wheel, I guess, and they kind of move around the carnival. They're on this like entrance way. That was pretty nice seeing the whole background, the scenery. Gege does a great job of that. Charles has like a ink pen as a curse tool, and it's called the G Battle Staff. I think the design of it is actually pretty cool, pretty neat. And the concept, it actually reminds me of Ichibei from Bleach. I don't want to go too much into that because that's Thousand Year Blood War stuff, and all I'm gonna say is it very much reminded me of that. And if you haven't seen Thousand Year Blood War arc or you haven't read it, you'll definitely understand what I mean by that when I say that it definitely reminded me of Ichibei's Zanpakuto. Now, Charles' technique is revealed in this. He basically puts manga panels on his opponent's body. You can see 1 second into the future as his ink pen fills with ink, and he can see even further into the future as the ink pen fills. And I guess as he was doing this throughout the chapter, you see him put little ink marks on Hakari. I wonder if that was kind of setting up the manga panel. It isn't exactly stated why he was doing the whole slash thing, but I think that is why the manga panels show up. He has to hit them with the ink first and then do the manga. I think it's just an ability. It is kind of something of what I expected, especially any type of mangaka. You already know they're gonna have some type of ink or some type of drawing tool because it fits that whole aesthetic. And this is actually not as strong as I thought it would be, but it kind of makes sense as Charles seems pretty new to the entire curse energy and curse technique thing. And in this entire chapter, no way did he even come close to being on par to Hakari. I mean, he didn't do any damage. He wasn't that great as a fighter, but I think his ability honestly probably works better as like a support more so than someone that's fighting one-on-one in general. But I think overall his ability is something that it's one of Gege's abilities to where it makes sense, it's creative, and it's not too, you know, out there when it comes to like how explained it is. It's actually pretty simple. I think it's a solid technique for what Charles is. And throughout the fight, especially in the beginning, Charles is using like poetry, quote unquote, from like editor notes and like author notes. I'm loving that whole thing. That's probably my favorite part about Charles so far is the reference of other manga and mangakas and just the aesthetic of manga in there. That's kind of more so what I appreciate more than just his character right now. We even got references to The Gray Man, which I haven't read, but I heard it's great, and Captain Tsubasa, which I haven't read it, but I played the game, and the game is actually pretty fire. So I think overall, I do like Charles. Like I said, the manga part of him, that's the best part about him so far. And Charles states that he wants to escape reality from fiction because a lot of manga could do that. When you're drawing or when you're kind of encapsulated into this world you create, you kind of want to leave reality and go there. Also, there's obviously, you know, as someone, if you read manga or if you go into any type of entertainment that's fiction, it's an escape from reality. All those stresses that you have in real life or those problems you have in real life, you watch these shows or you read these books, these comics, manga, and it takes you out of everything that's going around you in the real world, and you can just put yourself into this fictional world, and it just is way more kind of like a relaxer for, you know, anybody that's writing or into manga or any type of fiction. But he lost all of his motivation as an author, and Hakari perceived it as boredom, but for Charles it's despair. Hakari's speed and physical prowess in this chapter, it caught Charles way off guard, and even with the 1 second look in the future, it's still hard for Charles to keep up with Hakari. Hakari's demeanor this entire fight, he didn't take Charles seriously whatsoever. I mean, he even had the whole hands in his pockets thing up until like the middle way of the chapter until Charles kind of forced him to take his hands out of his pocket. So clearly, Hakari already knows he can beat Charles whenever he really feels like it, and I'm loving that right now because it's actually the first time I think in this Culling game right now we actually have a fight that's kind of really one-sided, except for maybe Yuta versus Drove, but we didn't see that obviously. But this is definitely the most one-sided fight we have going right now. The choreography overall, again, I'm loving the movement, and Hakari's style of fighting is very, like, it's kind of what I expected. Very brawler-esque, but he's got some technique to him, you know. When Charles is getting hit by Hakari, he says it feels like I'm getting coursed by a file, which is basically him saying it's sharp or it's a rough edge to his curse energy, which we know that because Hakari's rough energy, we saw that from the beatdown with Itadori. I don't think we ever got an explanation on as to why his curse energy is like that. Maybe it's just part of his, or maybe it's like that because of his personality, I'm assuming, because I don't remember if Gege specified why it's like that. But I'm just gonna assume that it's mainly because of his personality that it's kind of like that. Hakari's speed is just too much for Charles. He's still getting hits off on him. And this is essentially, like I said, a squash match. Hakari is a natural fighter, while Charles just isn't much of a fighter at all. He's constantly hitting Charles in his blind spot as Charles was trying to get into Hakari's blind spot, but he just, like I said, he's just way too quick for him. So his reflexes and everything else is just off, and Hakari's just dominating right now. While Hakari's beating down Charles, he says, an otaku like you will always find a reason to pick a fight over the smallest things. So I've got to break you completely. Now, when he said this sounds exactly like every other person that's ever a part of anime Twitter or any anime freaking discourse. That sounds exactly like what that is. If you've been on Twitter and you've seen one conversation or one thing about anime, that's 9 times out of 10 the gist of what it is. And Charles has this dialogue where he says, are you saying the vessel known as my heart is scarred? Well, it's already been shattered, and now I'm just a turbid float of emotions that spilled from it. He says, now I can see 2 seconds into the future. What are you going to do now? And this absolute king, this absolute Chad, this beast, Hakari, nonchalantly, casually pulls out domain expansion, wanting, I guess, to get rid of Charles quickly because he seems pretty annoyed by this. And his domain is called Restless Gambler. This domain cannot be predicted because of the short hit effect, and the explanation it has is that the explanation for the rules for Hakari's domain appeared in Charles' mind, which is pretty interesting. It definitely reminds me of, I guess, the closest thing we're going to get to probably Higuruma style domain. Maybe Hakari has something similar to that. That's kind of what I'm guessing. And the chapter ends pretty much there. Domain expansion, epic double spread, and then we have to wait about a week, maybe 2, for us to see what it looks like. But I'll get more to that and my thoughts on overall domain, overall chapter in the end thoughts portion of the video. So let's get into the overall review. So overall, I'm gonna give this about 8.5 out of 10. And the fight in general with Charles and Hakari, I don't even know if I call that really a fight. It's more so like a practice, like a sparring session for Hakari. But I'm loving, like I said, the demeanor. One thing I have to say, I'm going to say the start of the Zenin clan, the Maki arc, going basically up until where we're at now, I'm loving how Gege has kind of given us with this culling game kind of like everybody's perspective. In terms of people that's important, obviously, within our group, everybody's perspective and kind of like their own side arc. And the thing I'm really liking about that is every single, let's just call this a side arc of this culling game saga. That's more so what it feels like to me, more so of a saga than just one arc. Every side arc of this feels different, even though we're still doing the, meet up with whoever's in the colony and do what we have to do. Everybody feels different. Like we get Yuji's self-reflection on, him taking the burden of Sukuna's stuff and his part, making Mi's growth as a sorcerer against Reggie and his, and kind of seeing him slowly but surely take in like that Toji-esque ruthlessness to him. Then we got Yuta and how you see the prodigy about him and how he wants to go after Kenjaku because of everything that happened in Volume 0 and how he doesn't want Gojo to, kill his best friend again. And now with Hakari, we have him his is very much going to feel like a charismatic, entertaining arc with basically our main character for now, Hakari, trash talker. He doesn't really hide how he feels. He's extremely strong, but we still have yet to know more about him. Like, even Hakari himself with this arc, it feels like we're going to keep learning more about him as we go, which is really cool. And like I said with Maki, that one was a very narrative, story-driven, emotional, revenge-based arc that, felt completely different from everything we got prior to that. But I just wanted to give Gege that respect right there, because not many people, especially, I'm gonna just say current Jump, can have a cast of characters like this to where you can section off like a good 5 chapters for them, flesh out so many different things, narrative and character, and keep it interesting, keep it entertaining. Not many people could do that. But either way, on to like kind of how I feel about the chapter overall. I'm really looking forward to Hakari's domain. More times out of 10, I'm expecting his domain to be something similar to Higuruma's, to where it's going to be a lot of conditions to it. And since this is called Restless Gambler, on Twitter we kind of got like the kanji translations for him. And the 3 kanjis were sitting, kill, and then gambler. That's what we found out on Twitter via Miyamura. He gets some translations from there. He's pretty cool in the JJK community. But just off that, I could tell he's definitely gonna have conditions to his domain. Probably something where maybe, like, for example, I'm expecting a casino style domain. Well, that's what I'm hoping. But I'm gonna just say it's like that. So let's say maybe one condition is maybe, like, I don't know, maybe he gets stronger at one point, maybe he has a one-hit kill on one point, or maybe like a not at one-hit kill like a domain, but more so like kind of Higuruma had that executioner sword. Maybe he has something similar to that. And then maybe the gambling part is something to where he can actually be affected by his own domain. So that's what I'm expecting, but you never know, it could be something completely different and still something so cool. But Charles overall right now as a character, I'm kind of on the side of, like, he's okay, but he's nothing for right now. I'm not really super interested in, not gonna lie. Like I said, I think the best part about Charles right now is his funny little manga quips and the otaku trash talk that Hakari is giving him right now. So that's kind of how I feel, and I just can't wait for the next chapter. This was really hype. I'm a big fan of Hakari, if you can't tell. So any content we get with him, I'm there. But yeah, that's all the thoughts I had on this chapter. It was a very short chapter because it was a lot of dialogue. It was not dialogue, but more so just fighting trash talk, if that makes sense. And there was a lot of action, so it wasn't really too much to really, dig into. So that's all I really got right now. Let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about this chapter. You leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll holler at you on the next one. Peace.